Breakups are a part of life. It's just that simple. Breakups are a part of life. You're going to fall in love with someone one day. You're going to think that they're your everything. And then one day you're going to wake up and realize, you know what? I don't like how they chew. I don't like their attitude. I want to break up with them. It's like you've conceptualized this entire new reality and existence with this person as a part of your future reality. And then you realize that you're just not compatible with this person anymore, even though you were in love with them or perceived to be in love with them for a portion of your life. It makes no sense. It's quite irrational. And that's why people break up. I had this girlfriend once. I started talking to her when I was a junior in high school, and she was a senior in high school because I love the older women. Now, we started dating when I was a senior in high school and she was a freshman in college. So when I started to go off into college as a freshman and she was a sophomore, obviously I applied to go to her college because I want to be with my girlfriend in that college. I don't want to do this long distance thing because this long distance thing sucks. For anyone who's done long distance, you probably know how much it sucks. So I applied to her college. I mean, that's the main college. I'm spending my days and nights my senior year trying to get these essays and these applications ready to make sure I get into that college so we don't have to do this long distance thing. Well, I ended up getting rejected from that college. Why do I get rejected from that college? Because that college just happens to be Stanford University, and they reject 96% of people and accept 4%. So for every 100, 96 go away, 4 get in. She was one of those 4. She also got into Harvard, so it's like an amazingly smart human being. And I ended up going to a state school in New Jersey. Now, as a result of this situation, because I am in New Jersey and she's in California, we have to do this whole long distance thing. The problem is, one day, this is about 6-7 months into our relationship, we're long distance. It's like November 2016. I'm in my dorm room in college in New Jersey, and she's off in Stanford, California. She sends me a text message. This is a very profound text message. This text message changed the trajectory of my life because it eventually gave me a story that would be really interesting to tell one day. But it was also just a very interesting text message. That text message is, hey, come over. And I'm looking at that text message like, well, hey. You're 3,000 miles away. It's not that easy to just come over. She's like, I know, but I want you to come over. And I'm like, So this is the sort of irrational nature of love, which is just like you haven't seen someone in a long time. You're longing to see them. I thought that I was only going to see her when she comes back on holidays, when she comes back to New Jersey, because that's where she's from. So I was like, oh, that's when we see each other. But she had a different thing in mind. She was like, no. He's going to come see me because he loves me and he's in love with me while I'm in California. And when I ultimately had to make the decision, I was like, well, this is a little bit risky because I can't tell anyone that I'm going to California. Why? Because, well, the main people that need to know are my parents, right? Because it's like, are you just going to leave the state randomly for a couple of days and just like not tell anyone? That's like, that's a little crazy. But I can't tell my parents because they don't know I have a girlfriend. So it's like, I can't tell my parents that, hey, mom and dad, I'm going to go see my girlfriend in California because they don't even know that I'm dating someone. So it's like, well, that's out of the question. I can't make up an excuse to say I'm going to California because they would be like, why the hell are you going to California? Like, what? Like, that doesn't make any sense. So I'm just like, if I do this, I can't tell anyone. It's gonna have to be this thing. I'm gonna have to be like some secret like ninja or something that just goes and does this mission and then comes back and everything's okay. And I'm also weighing the possibilities of my head because you start to go to the extreme when these things happen of like, well, what if I'm on that airplane and that airplane crashes and it's like no one even knows that I'm on this airplane going to California. Like it's just like you start running through all these wild situations in your head. Nonetheless, the irrational nature of love takes over, and I'm like, I'm hopping on that flight, and I'm going to see my girl, because I haven't seen my girl in a while. So it was only going to be for 3 days. On Thursday night, I get on a red eye, get to California. Friday morning, I'm like, oh my goodness, I'm in California. I spend 3 amazing days with her. Sunday night, get back on a red eye, come back on Monday morning, make it to my microeconomics class. And as soon as I get to class, I'm just like, did I really just do that? Did I just go to California for 3 days? Nothing happened, right? The plane didn't crash. My dad actually did call me while I was in California, but it was just a small question. I thought he was going to be like, hey, we need you to come home. Something bad is happening. I'm going to be like, oh, well, of course, because this is what life has to do. But it didn't happen, right? It went decently all right. I was able to like have that conversation with him while we were in California and nothing crazy kind of happened. And then I was able to come back to New Jersey and I was back in my microeconomics class and like nothing had happened. But for those past 4 days, I had just spent this amazing weekend in California. And when I tell people this story, they're like, hey, Amit, you must have really loved this girl. You must have really been thinking with your heart and not your head because of how irrationally you were in love with her. And I was like, well, I was 19 years old. I hadn't seen my girlfriend in about 3 months. So I was thinking with another body part as well. And that body part makes you do some irrational things as well. Nonetheless, love is irrational. And the problem is that irrational nature of love feels good when you're in it, but when it's time to get out of it, you gotta break up. And it happens. You gotta end it sometimes. Love is as irrational as buying a stock when it is $30, $33, $26, $27, going on CNBC live television saying, hey, we love exactly what they're saying. They're saying we have a 5-year horizon. They're saying don't buy the stock if you aren't in it for the long term. That is music to our ears. We want our companies to invest in growth and get market share, and we want to see this out for the next 5 years. That is when you are irrationally doing something and you think you're compatible with someone. You think you're compatible with a stock. And then eventually you realize, you know what, we don't really like that stock. And you take a almost $320 million loss buying almost 25 million shares of a certain stock and then selling it at what seems to be the bottom. And maybe it's not the bottom. Maybe $9 for Palantir is the bottom. But nonetheless, you took a multi-$100 million loss. Cathie Wood just liquidated the remaining basically 12 million shares of her portfolio, or her position when it comes to Palantir, out of her ARK portfolio. She has like 300,000 shares left. I mean, those are probably going to go away as well soon. And we saw this coming last week. We were like, well, she sold 5 million, then she sold 11 million, then she was like, well, she only has about 12 million left. And I kind of, not predicted, but I in my head, I told myself internally, like, there's no way she's just keeping these 12 million shares. Like, you don't just bulk sell that much of your position to just like get rid of it. Nonetheless, she sold about 12 million more last night. And it's kind of insane to me because it's like, well, you were in love with us. You were in love. You were in love. You were in love so much that you were willing to go all the way to California and not tell anybody. You were in love so much that you were willing to just buy it at $17 in January. Forget 2021. January 2022, you're loading up 6 million shares in the first week of the trading sessions. And then you take a loss, and then it's over. Now, the point of this story is, look, breakups are normal and breakups happen. And I broke up with that girl. She was my first girlfriend, and I had an amazing 2.5 years with her. I had some amazing experiences with her. But at the end, you know, it was over. And I get to talk about those experiences. I get those experiences to get to mean something about the nature of my own existence and my own life. They get to influence how I perceive the world. But it's over. I have moved on. Cathie Wood seems to have moved on. But her breakup is a little bit more strenuous than my breakup. My breakup with that girl was like, all right, we have to go our separate ways, but at least we'll have the memories. Cathie Wood doesn't really have any good memories with Palantir stock. Cathie Wood took a multi-$100 million loss on that position. For what? For Roku? For Roblox? For Zoom? She zoomed out of that stock, and I hope Zoom gets you your money back because it is not a good look. You know, there are some amicable breakups, and then there's some messy breakups. I would say my breakup with her, even after going to, you know, you would think, how could you break up with someone after just flying to California to see them? Like, that's crazy. That's irrational. You must be so in love with that person. And it's like, yes, I am. But, you know, now it's over. And we recognize that we're not compatible, and it's time to move on. And in the context of Cathie Wood, it didn't seem like it was time to move on. My breakup was amicable because we had experiences and it was 2.5 years. It was a little bit more long distance than a couple months. And it was like, well, we need to move on. We need to go do our own thing. And I wish you the best. And it was a very friendly breakup, to be honest. It was just like, hey, we don't want to do this long distance thing anymore. We got to move on. But with Cathie, it's like you barely had any time with us. You were buying us at a you kept flying to, like, if we're comparing buying something at the very high at an irrational thing and flying to California as an irrational thing in my example, she flew to California many, many, many times. She flew to California in January buying the stock at $17. And now she's out. There is nothing that was in that earnings call that could have said liquidate 20 million shares. There is absolutely nothing in that earnings call that called for liquidating that much of your position. What, the government metrics? Give me a break. There was nothing in that earnings call that said, or that call, or the actual numbers of that call that were like, we need to liquidate our position. Either your research team didn't do their research and there's something they uncovered that we don't know, which would be some insider trading. I'm not saying they're doing that, but if it's some public form of information that all the people in the community, me, Sachin, Chris, Codestrap, Sebastian, too many other people to name, that are just overlooking, then golly, I guess you have the best research team on the planet, because I guess they know something that the rest of us don't. That has to be public information, because if it's not, then that is called insider trading. So if it's public information and we don't know about it, well, I'd like to put our research team on YouTube and Twitter against ARK Innovations research team. I don't care how crazy or irrational that sounds. I think we've done some deep dig. Nothing justifies liquidating that much of a position. If I was an institution that was invested in ARK, let's say I had big money invested in ARK, a retail investor or just like a regular hedge fund that allocates capital to ARK because I want to get exposure to growth, and I find out today that they take a $300 million loss on Palantir, I would be fuming. I would be like, what are you doing with my money? This is absolutely insane. And again, I don't hate Cathie Wood. I made a lot of videos praising her. I'm not saying Cathie Wood, her inflation thesis, supply chain thesis, all of that is wrong. I'm not saying she's an idiot. I'm not saying any of that. I'm saying this move doesn't look good. This is a messy, messy breakup. And you're going to have a lot of Palantir shareholders that are not going to be happy with you and that are likely going to hold this against you over the next 4 or 5 years when this stock, if this stock has a parabolic rise, which I believe it will over the course of the next 5, 6, 7 years, given the growth potential of the company. Now, there's an execution risk, like there's an execution risk with anything. But I believe that there is a very strong chance that Palantir turns out as a good trade. There's just too much due diligence that I've done personally to feel convinced about that. So for Cathie Wood to take this loss on whatever stock she wants to invest in after publicly acknowledging this was a 5-year time horizon and we want, our companies to do this, means that either the government thing was pissing her off, which is like, okay, or she found some piece of information that she didn't know about before, or like she's forced to liquidate the position because there's funds that are outflowing. And it's like, if that's the case and you choose Palantir as the stock that is forced to liquidate, then you've ultimately lost full conviction for Palantir. So at the end of the day, it's like you don't believe in the company, which is fine. That's okay. It's just a little bit of a messy breakup, but breakups are okay. And that's the final thing I want to say in this video. Breakups are okay. They can be messy. They can be amicable. You'd rather them be amicable than messy. And you'd rather you at least have some time to figure it out if you want to be with each other before it ends up leaving. But even if it's rushed, even if it's in a hurry, even if you play these little emotional games like buying it in January and then selling in February and liquidating your entire position, whatever you want to do, that's fine. Breakups are a part of life. The key thing is to move on after a breakup and go on to the next one and get your life over with and get things done, because there's other things that you have to do, not just be stuck in the messy memories of a relationship if there was a messy breakup. So to me, it's like, all right, Cathie, you're gone. That's fine. We will see what happens over the long term, but I trust in my due diligence and myself. And, sometimes you got to have a breakup because that's the nature of life. You think you're compatible and then you realize you're not. Overall, I believe I'm compatible with Palantir. She doesn't think she's compatible with Palantir. That's up to her. Wish her the best in her journeys in life.